G'day guys and welcome back to your English Aussie. Today we're going to go through the tactical observations from Game Week 25's fixtures, what you can expect ahead of Game Week 26 on this Talking Tactics podcast. We'll talk through what this means for FPL options and which options therefore you should look at. Firstly, we're going to start off with Fulham versus Nottingham Forest. A bit of a surprise as Fulham pulled off a 2-1 win against Nottingham Forest. They continued in their 4-2-3-1 formation, which they've been sort of utilising for the last maybe 6 or so matches, where Robinson's moved back from his sort of almost left wing role. He played for a few matches for Fulham into the more orthodox left wing back role. He's still really getting forwards high down that left-hand side. Regardless of this, sometimes Iwobi moves slightly more centrally, and that allows Robinson to get down that left wing into very high positions. And still looks a really nice attacking threat for potential assists. For me, he's definitely somebody to look into over the upcoming game weeks, given Fulham have a nice few fixtures over the next 3, and also don't blank in 29 against Tottenham. After that, their fixtures do become a little more difficult. So if you do have Robinson, he is somebody that's a hold for me, but otherwise potentially not looking to bring him in right now. The pace of counterattacks for both teams is something that is really crucial to both of those teams' build-up play, both of those teams' style of play. Both teams have a lot of progressive carries with the ball, bringing the ball up the pitch really quickly. Nottingham Forest with a lot of progressive passes, very quick balls out towards their sort of wing-backs. And Nottingham Forest have switched up formations recently, going to sort of a 3-5-2 from their normal sort of 4-5-1, 4-3-3 formations. After that 5-0 defeat at Bournemouth, obviously they got a 7-0 win at Brighton last week, and they stuck with that same 3-5-2 formation. However, I did feel that defensively the spacings between their defenders were not quite as solid as they are when they normally set up in that sort of 4-5-1 formation, where they're so accustomed to knowing exactly where they need to be in that low block, and they make it so difficult to be able to be broken down. In the 3-5-2, the centre-backs are not quite sure how far to be spaced apart, and you can sort of see that from that first goal from Fulham, where the cross just went over the back of Morata's head, and Raul Jimenez managed to score. Furthermore, with that, the fullbacks were Nico Williams got absolutely destroyed by Adama Traore, especially in the first half, and for parts of that second half, down Forest's, down Fulham's right hand side. So that was something that was a real problem for them defensively, and I think just not being set up how they're used to, not knowing when are the right times to be coming back, when are the right times to be getting forwards, did cause them a bit of trouble from a defensive standpoint. I thought Fulham played really well. They play a very similar style to Forest, and obviously that for Forest was quite difficult, given they like to sit back, be behind the ball for a lot of the game. However, for Nottingham Forest, and sorry, excuse me, I'm not feeling too well today, so I'm sort of recording with a bit of a runny nose. Forest in that 3-5-2 meant that Anthony Elanga sort of played alongside Chris Wood in that top 2. And that was really interesting because they played very close together, really trying to link up and cause those interlinks. So as soon as Elanga sprung forwards, Wood would push and try and get alongside him, and vice versa. That allowed Elanga to be in a lot more dangerous positions. He could obviously run on past Wood. He could sort of get the ball early, allow Wood to come and join the play. And he really looks like he could be a fantastic option for FPL at his cheap price point in the midfield, if he continues to play in that sort of second striker role alongside Chris Wood. We did go for both teams to score, as you can see here, and that was a correct prediction for this week. Leicester versus Arsenal. Arsenal obviously managed to get the 2-0 win. I thought Leicester played a really good game against them and caused them a lot of problems, especially in the first half. Leicester played a really sort of narrow 4-4-2, low mid-block sort of defence, and they chose their moments to be sort of springing into their aggressive presses, and that caused Arsenal some problems because They were trying to build up the play nicely, and as they tried to play through the middle, Leicester sometimes sprung that sort of aggressive press on them and did manage to pick them off a couple of times and cause some sort of offensive transition chances against Arsenal, and actually could have taken the lead right at the end of the first half, where I think it was Wilfred and Didi just nodded the ball wide of the post from one of those moments where they did take the ball off Arsenal in that sort of aggressive press. I thought Samare and Didi were fantastic in sort of the base of that midfield for Leicester, but they really did defend resolutely, very narrow, didn't give Arsenal a lot of space to work in. Obviously, all the way 0-0 until all the way up until the 80th minute. Arsenal actually brought on Mikel Moreno into a number 9 position. Obviously, with the injuries to Havertz, to Saka, to Jesus, they really struggled with that sort of attacking threat from open play, as they have done for a lot of the season. They're lacking a lot of confidence in that attacking third, and as we talked about when we did that deep dive tactical analysis into Arsenal's offence, that is one of the things that they're really needing. And with Moreno providing those 2 goals, perhaps that does sort of bring a little bit of confidence into their attack, and maybe that's something Arteta looks to use again in the next game week. It's a different sort of physical presence that he brings, despite him not being accustomed to playing that role. So potentially this could be a solution to Arsenal's issues. For me, I think that Moreno is not it was a short period of time that we saw him play in that number 9 role. I don't think it is a long-term solution for Arsenal. We'll see how he goes in the next game where they take on West Ham. But I do think, and we'll go on to West Ham formation, I do think it will be a little bit more difficult for them, the way West Ham set up. Nwaneri obviously is the 4.5 million winger that everyone's been talking about in FPL. He was a bright spark for Arsenal, but for me just doesn't look like a long-term solution for them. He does look like a good player, but also for FPL is not somebody that I'm super keen on bringing into the side at the moment with Arsenal's struggles. Ben White was back on the bench for Arsenal, which does raise some concerns for those of you that are Timber owners. Will he start to see a little bit more rotation now Ben White's coming back? And do you need to look at potentially moving to somebody else in that defence? We did go for 2+ goals scored for Arsenal, for the Arsenal versus Leicester game, so that was another correct prediction for this week. We have had a good week this week with the predictions. Just before we get on to the Man City Newcastle, just a reminder, if you guys do enjoy this content, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. It's a really small thing, but it really helps so much for this channel to grow and get pushed out to more people. Really appreciate all of you guys that watch the video. Please try to watch to the end. Again, that helps the algorithm, it helps the channel. Thank you so much, guys. Let's get straight back into it. And that leads us on to Man City, where we also went for 2+ goals scored, which was a bit of an easy win for us this week. As I've been mentioning in previous weeks, Man City really seemed to have solved their attacking issues. What I noted was it was actually due to sort of Savio going onto that left-hand side and opening up the space, but he actually moved back to the right this week. And then, what the problem was in previous weeks was he closed off that space for Foden in the little half spaces and pockets by cutting inside onto his left foot. But you saw that Foden was very aware of that this week and actually drifted even further across the left, allowing Savio to have that space to cut inside and go down the wing. That obviously caused some sort of offensive problems for Foden in terms of his own spaces and spacing and his attacking threat, but it did allow Savio to have the options to go left, to go right, and he did cause some problems for Lewis Hall down the Newcastle left. On the other side, they had Marmoush playing on that left wing role, who often was operating as like a second striker with Haaland, and I thought that was a really nice tactical change from Guardiola that caused Newcastle a lot of defensive issues. The way Newcastle have often played Haaland is they've had one of their 2 centre-backs in Dan Burn and Fabian Schär man-marking Haaland, and the other one sort of dropping off and trying to cover for him for spinning in behind. When Marmoush sort of moved into that second striker role, that occupied both of their centre backs, or at times it meant that like a Trippier would have to come across and cover when they sometimes doubled up on Haaland. This just gave Marmoush a lot of space, it caused a lot of Newcastle a lot of problems, and it was literally one long ball from Ederson, and the defence was so focused on Haaland that allowed Marmoush to just sprint straight in behind and finish with a lovely lob. He picked up a lot, he caused them a lot of problems getting in between the fullbacks, the centre backs. Newcastle weren't sure whether the fullback should be going, whether the centre back should be going, with Haaland there sort of being that focal point, and he just drove a lot of the eyes of Newcastle defence onto him. That really allowed Marmoush to sort of get a lot of extra space and be a lot more threatening. Obviously in the future this is something that teams are going to have to look at and are going to have to deal with both of those dual threats for Man City. This could be really beneficial for Haaland in the future, where maybe the defence is not so focused on him, and he might be able to continue to get back into scoring form. So watch out for him in the upcoming game weeks for Manchester City. I think they still did show a lot of defensive fragility, but we won't go on to talk about that too much since they did get a 4-0 win. I thought Gvardiol again was getting into some nice attacking positions for them, and causing sort of giving a potential for some attacking return, similarly to how he did earlier in the season. So that definitely could be something that we can look at from sort of game week 29 onwards, where Manchester City fixtures really start to pick up and get a lot nicer. Liverpool, we went for the cop-out again of Salah to return, which I think is just my set and forget for all Liverpool fixtures this year. I think he's only failed to return in about 3 fixtures out of 25 or 26 now for Liverpool. I did feel like Liverpool did look slightly tired in the second half, especially defensively. They really struggled. They have to rotate their defence with Konate and Trent obviously playing with knocks at the moment. That was very fortunate for any Trent Alexander-Arnold owners, as he came off at 60 minutes before Liverpool conceded that goal, so did get the clean sheet points. I do think though Liverpool winning while not playing at their best is really, when you're a title contender, this is the way that you win a league, and it is something that Arsenal have struggled to do in the past, but they have also maintained their momentum recently, and even with their attacking difficulties have also been continuing to put the pressure on Liverpool, who are staying there and thereabouts. And I think now it's going to be a really tight run into the end of the season. Both teams have some nice fixtures between now and sort of game week 33, and then I think that potentially game week 36, where Arsenal do play against Liverpool, is going to be the title decider, and it could be a humongous game in the term of this season, and they want to make sure that all their players are back and fit for that. Wolves again, I think do lack a little bit of cutting edge. Like, they don't really have those sort of attacking talent at the moment to cause too much damage to teams. Cunha was obviously the main sort of attacking impetus, and he really only got going after Liverpool made a few substitutions, and I think weren't quite 100% sure where they should all be positioned at times. But yeah, Liverpool obviously managed that 2-1 win, and we did get the Salah to return, so that was nice for us. Moving on to Tottenham v Man United, and we did take a big gamble here on Tottenham clean sheet, which I did not think would end up coming off and looking so good as a pick for this week. This game was really interesting tactically to talk about. And I felt that Bruno being in that pivot role for Tottenham, he was being dragged all over the pitch by Maddison. And I thought it was clearly something Andrew thought about, the way they positioned their midfielders, the way they sort of inverted DJ Spence at times, caused Man United so much difficulties because Dalot didn't know where he should be. He thought Spence was his man. Bruno, therefore's man, ended up being Maddison, that was playing in sort of that dual 10 role with Bergvall. So Bruno was always having to run around with Maddison. He then was trying to get Mazraoui to step up from that back three and sort of occupy him. At those times, then Mazraoui was not quite getting out there quick enough. Maddison then started to drop a little bit deeper to force Bruno to go with him. He wasn't quite getting there in time. And I thought the way Tottenham worked it, they really made Man United work supremely hard in that midfield. That meant that actually Bruno didn't quite have the legs to be getting on the ball as much, being in those creative areas that he is Man United's main creative threat. And one of the problems with that as well was Xerxes out of possessions, not working back, not helping out. So when Maddison did drop a little bit deeper, like Xerxes wasn't able to pick him up, and Bruno would have to push all the way up there to track Maddison. And then on the other side with Bergvall, I just felt like they pressed him quite high. They pressed Casemiro quite high when he was on the ball. And you can see a little bit from his passing, like he just wants to play short 5-metre passes. He doesn't see the big picture of the field and the game fast enough these days. You can see he's starting to decline in his speed of thinking and his speed of play. And when Tottenham have been pressing him quickly, he's not seeing those passes that are, maybe the over the top, over into the sort of left midfield role, little diagonals into Garnacho that were available for him. He's just looking for those short passes and then to move. Again, and Man United weren't always there and available for him, given that Tottenham aggressive press on Casemiro. That caused them a lot of problems, I think. And that triangle on Tottenham's left of Son, Spence and Maddison, again, like I said, caused United a lot of problems. Son obviously pushing on really high meant that was it Mazraoui or was it Dalot that needed to go with him? Effectively, it was Bruno, Mazraoui and Dalot versus Son, Spence and Maddison. And that just meant Bruno had to keep continuously working so hard as they really moved him all the way around the pitch. I think Tottenham deserved winners of that game. Man United really have quite a few things to work on. I'm not sure the pivot role for Bruno is really his best position. And I think he might need to be employed in sort of those inside forward roles going forwards. Brighton-Chelsea, obviously I don't have the correct text in here. We did also go for 2+ goals scored, which was the correct prediction. I think, again, Brighton have showed that Herzl has sort of been tinkering a lot over the last sort of 10 game weeks. Potentially they found something here. João Pedro has been sort of moved down into the bench role. Obviously Brighton have got 2 results against Chelsea in the last couple of weeks. And I think it's interesting that they sort of gone with that front 4 without JP, and he definitely could be somebody where we should be looking to move him out of the team at the moment. There are a few nice striker options at the moment, and João Pedro, with now being a minutes risk, potentially someone that just needs to be moved on despite the nice game against Southampton next week. Chelsea, obviously, Jackson's now out for 6 to 8 weeks. He didn't play in this game, and Kunku starting up front for them could be a nice option going forwards at 5.7 million for Chelsea. They do need to find their feet a little bit. They've had a couple of tough results over the last few weeks. Cole Palmer obviously drawing a few blanks and some criticism around the league. However, I just think that Chelsea have some really nice game weeks with Villa, Southampton and Leicester over the next 3. Cole Palmer definitely wouldn't be a sell for me. Would hold on to him over these game weeks. And Kunku even could become a really nice budget midfield option if you are looking to move on from, for example, Morgan Rogers. Into the next section, and we finally got a few picks wrong for the game week, and we did have an exceptional week when it came to predictions. It was 8 out of 10 predictions correct this week. However, West Ham Brentford, we got scuppered with both teams to score. I thought West Ham have been a lot better under Graham Potter going forwards recently. They moved to this sort of 3-4-2-1 role formation, and it just looked a lot more well set up with their attacking patterns, which is something he did so well at Brighton and gave them that identity as well, before Herzl sort of tinkered with it and gave his own style. However, West Ham did for some reason move back to that 4-2-3-1 formation, which I think has always exposed their midfield in transition. Like the two holding midfielders don't have the sort of pace in them. Their back four often don't have the pace in their legs. I would expect them to revert back to a 3-4-2-1 against Arsenal. Otherwise, I think Arsenal could really run through them a little bit. We're seeing from a Brentford perspective that, you know, early in the season we were saying Brentford had great home form, they had terrible away form. It was honestly just to do with the fixtures. They had a lot of their harder games the first half of the season away, a lot of their easier games at home. Now we're seeing their away form pick up significantly, their home form become a little bit more difficult. So these are the sort of tactical things that you have to take into consideration throughout the season. You can't just look at statistics and think that they show you everything, although they are extremely helpful. I think Mbeumo Wissa continue to look dangerous. Mbeumo sort of a little bit on the peripheral on that sort of right wing sort of role in the 3-5-2 that Brentford set up again this week. Sharda looked really lively through the middle with Wissa, and I thought Wissa was super unlucky not to get more goals, with a couple ruled out for an offside and I think a foul in the build-up play. So unfortunate for any Wissa owners that did start him this week. Palace v Everton, we went for a draw. I think both teams have been looking really good over the late game weeks. Moyes has showed that he's continued the defensive solidity that they've had under Sean Dyche, along with these sort of tactical tweaks he's made from an offensive standpoint, which has meant that he's allowed his offensive players to stay higher up the pitch and to not have to be tracking back as much. And have as many defensive responsibilities. That's allowed it, when Everton win the ball, to have more options to sort of get the ball up the pitch, hold the ball up the pitch, and be more of an attacking threat and be in those more threatening attacking positions, which has been more difficult to deal with for oppositions, and have meant that they've sort of been able to maintain possession a little bit better when they're attacking, rather than sort of in the past they've been playing that really direct style with nobody up there to be able to get the ball, and people have just been coming at them and coming at them and coming at them. I think Moyes has done an amazing job at Everton, and I thought, yeah, they did a good job to win this game against Crystal Palace, who have been in some really good form of late. On to the last couple of games. Villa versus Ipswich, went for 2+ goals scored, another correct prediction. I just think Villa post midweek games, or when they have two games in a week, just come out so lethargic, really struggle. And I thought Ipswich again showed a lot of energy, a lot of desire, and just did incredible despite the sort of decisions against them in that game. Just brilliant with a sending off to come back 1-1 against Villa. They just showed a lot of energy, and Villa again just showed that they sometimes just lack that cutting edge, lack the sort of energy where they're having a lot of games in a row to play. Rodgers is becoming a little bit of a meme for FPL owners in the league. I think in the last sort of 3 games he's got 3 yellow cards, no goals, no assists. In the last 3 games, in the cup games or the Champions League games, you've got 4 goals and 1 assist. So really causing issues for fantasy managers there. Watkins for me is the one player where I just think he looks so fantastic for Villa. And despite sort of Rashford coming into the team and Mallon as well, has that ability to play, I think more in the wing roles, both of those guys. Although we have seen Mallon being able to play in that central striker role, as we've seen for Rashford for United, but I don't think that's his main role. I just think Watkins is so essential to what Villa do. His movement's so fantastic, and if his finishing can just click like it did in last season, and for England, he's almost a must-buy for me. I think there's so many routes to points for Watkins, and he's Villa's main man. He's most of the time on penalties we would expect. I think Ipswich do still remain the team to target for me offensively. I think Villa didn't show what they needed to break them down, but Ipswich again defensively don't look particularly solid, although they did do a great job with 10 men this week. And the final game of the game week, Southampton versus Bournemouth. As we've talked about this season, I think Southampton just haven't quite learned the counter pressure that Juric wants them to do yet, and they need to get there now. Like, if they want to stay up this season, it's got to happen. I thought that they were getting there when they played against Ipswich, but it's more important than ever now for Southampton that once they get through to maybe and then next game week against Brighton important. They then have Chelsea, Liverpool, where they probably don't expect too much out of that. But from game week 29 onwards, they got Wolves, Palace, Tottenham, Villa, West Ham, Fulham, Leicester, City, Everton into game week 37. They've got to get on a run there, and if they don't manage to find something, they're not going to survive this season. Bournemouth, on the other hand, complete opposite, just in fantastic form at the moment, despite the mammoth of injuries that they've seen, probably the most the whole Premier League seeing. They're just finding ways. They're just finding players. They're just finding ways to perform. They've obviously got now Dango Atara in the number 9 role with injuries to NFO and Evan Nilsson that are ruling them out for the next month or the season. Atara's been fantastic in that number 9 role, really a great option for fantasy owners at 5 million. Kluivert and Semenyo, I think Semenyo is like dribbling and skills and sort of progressive carries with the ball, fantastic. His finishing is appalling, and one of the reasons that I wouldn't go for him in an FPL side, the opposite of that is Justin Kluivert. His finishing is just fantastic. He strikes the ball with so much power. He can score from long range, he can score from inside the box, and he can also be creative. So I think for me, like, your pick for Bournemouth has got to be between Kluivert and Dango. And I think I possibly just favour Dango due to the number 9 role, but I think the penalties for Kluivert make it very close. Bournemouth are actually at the top of the table for distance run, which makes a lot of sense to me watching the games because, yeah, I've been talking about this rock and roll style for Iraola, but I mean, that's really what it is. They have this 4-2-3-1 formation, but actually their fullbacks are pressing up so high, almost onto the other teams' fullbacks defensively. Their centre-backs are pressing up all the way into the middle of the pitch, like the halfway line, and their defensive midfielders are just covering so much ground. Attacking defensive, they almost break defensively as well, where they chase back with so much intent that you just see the legs in that team are unbelievable, and there's no surprise to me that they are at the top of the table for distance run. I think they've been a real shining light this season for teams. And also from set pieces, they've been fantastic. They've got a set piece coach. They employ some tactics that are very similar to what Arsenal do from set pieces. I think they've got a little bit more creativity behind some of their set pieces as well. I've seen some really fantastic ones from them this season. I think they're one of the best teams in the Premier League offensively from set pieces as well. So Bournemouth have had a lot going for them this season, and I really think they've been fantastic. Guys, I just want to say, if you haven't subscribed already to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you enjoy this content. It really helps this small channel grow. We've got to sort of 1.1k subscribers so far. I really appreciate any of you guys that can like. It's a small thing for you guys to like and subscribe, but really massively helps the channel and these videos. We have just pushed over to the first monetized threshold here on YouTube, so it's going really well. We've grown really quickly this season. We're hoping for that final push through to the end of the season here. So thank you so much to you guys. I really appreciate if you can watch to the end of these videos. And yeah, good luck for game week 26. We will be doing a live stream for you guys where we'll be doing team reviews and answering questions, doing transfer plans for all of your teams. We'll pull it up on the screen for any of you that want it done. We'll cover every single team in the live stream, so tune in for that and make sure you all have a great game week. This has been your English Aussie. Have a great week, guys, and I'll catch you later.